Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to be doing a little bit of an overview of one of my favourite topics, knowledge transfer partnerships. As you'll see, I've been involved in KTP for quite a few years as we run through the next couple of slides, and we're delighted to bring our webinar together today to give you guys a bit more detail about how knowledge transfer partnerships work and how we can get involved in the programme. So, as we're joined today by Andrew Kinnear from West of Scotland KTP Centre and also by Laura Dee from the North of Scotland KTP Centre. Unfortunately, our colleagues in the East couldn't make it today, so Andrew and Laura will also cover off the capability from the East of Scotland as well. Quick introduction to myself. I'm Gregor Cranstoun. I work with the Manufacturing Skills Academy here in NMIS. As I mentioned, KTP is one of my favourite topics. I was a KTP associate when I was a reasonably fresh graduate, probably 100 years ago now, and that kick-started my career after I left university. After I'd been away working in industry, my first job back with the university was working at the West of Scotland KTP Centre, and I worked alongside Andrew and helped put some KTPs together during the time that we worked together. I've now been with NMIS for about 4 years, and we're starting to ramp up our activity within KTP and trying to put together more projects and more involvement with NMIS where we can provide some support for your businesses as well. So that's what the content of today's webinar is going to be, a bit of an overview as to how NMIS can get involved in KTP, and then in a bit more detail about KTP, how it works, and some case studies that Andrew and Laura will share with you to give you some examples of some successful projects that the centres and the programme has supported over the years. So before we get started, we've got a quick bit of housekeeping to cover off. This webinar is being recorded, and after we've finished today, it will be made available on our YouTube channel where you can review the slides and see the content of the webinar there. So your microphones and your webcams will be turned off during the session to avoid any background noise. Any questions that you've got, please pop them into the chat box and we'll pick them up towards the end of the session. If you want to do any promotion on your socials, use the hashtag NMIS Insights for any questions, and on Twitter, you've got our Twitter handle there as well. We'll also send out a short survey after the webinar, and we'd really appreciate your feedback. So if you were able to complete that for us and return it, that would be greatly appreciated. So without getting into any detail and stealing Andrew and Laura's thunder, NMIS are now starting to ramp up our activity within the KTP world. So although we're part of Strathclyde University and we engage with KTPs as part of the university, NMIS is also a national asset and has a much wider remit. So in addition to Strathclyde, we can also provide support to KTPs with other universities. So some of the expertise that we have across NMIS, and in particular within the Manufacturing Skills Academy, we've got some, as I mentioned, quite a bit of expertise within the Skills Academy. I've worked within KTP myself. I've also been a KTP associate, so I've seen projects from both sides of the fence. Some of my colleagues in the Manufacturing Skills Academy have also worked within the KTP world over the years, directly with the university, and have supported many projects. So we've got a breadth of expertise across a range of different KTPs within the engineering and manufacturing sphere. We can also make introductions to academics and knowledge bases and the KTP support team, that some of whom we're joined with today. Often when starting a KTP, that's some of the most difficult challenges, is getting introduced to the right academic partner to support the programme. And we're obviously very well connected with Strathclyde University, but also across the academic institutions across Scotland. So we're happy to help make some introductions to suitable academics to support anybody that is interested in picking up a KTP project. And in addition, within the Skills Academy, a big part of KTP is obviously that knowledge transfer piece. And within the Skills Academy, we've got access to an extensive training portfolio, which we can use to support projects that we're involved in as well. So NMIS have some unique capability across our different centres, as you know, and we're able to lead KTPs as part of Strathclyde University. So anybody that is interested and has a project that fits within the NMIS capability, we've got the expertise to lead those projects directly from within NMIS. But I think more often, NMIS can fulfil a supporting role in projects that are being run through either Strathclyde University or some of the other universities across Scotland. So we're quite happy to fulfill that role. That gives you access to our unique expertise and some of the unique equipment that we have within the NMIS portfolio. I think possibly the best way to show you that is a bit of an example. Although KTP is a relatively new area within NMIS, this example that I put up on the screen just now is for a project that we were successfully involved in and secured and is now up and running with Ailsa Reliability Solutions. So a brief history of this one: I met the company at one of our other events earlier this year. And after having the normal chat that we do within NMIS about their growth and their innovation plans, KTP seemed like a really good fit to tap into some new skills and expertise to help push their project forward. So I was able to make introductions to suitable academic colleagues within EEE, within the University of Strathclyde, and also with colleagues within NMIS Digital Process and Manufacturing Centre. So we set up that three-party project team between NMIS, the university, and the company. And NMIS are now actually hosting a test rig at the DPMC as part of this project. So the project's now successfully up and running. The company secured the funding with Andrew's support to build their application. And that project has now successfully recruited the KTP associate and is now up and running within the University of Strathclyde, but supported by my colleagues over in the DPMC. So quite a good example of bringing a company that didn't have much awareness of KTP into the world of knowledge transfer partnerships. We were able to help introduce them to the right academic support team, and we were able to offer direct support from NMIS ourselves. So a really powerful partnership, and we're really looking forward to working with the company for the next couple of years and seeing how this project evolves. So as I said, I was only going to give a brief introduction today and very much not wanting to steal the thunder of Andrew and Laura. So that's all from me. I'm going to pass you over to Laura now, who'll kick things off and start getting into a bit more detail about how KTP works. And just a wee reminder that if you've got any questions, please pop them into the chat box and I'll pick them up as we move through the presentations, and we'll pick them up and cover them off at the end of the session. And thanks very much. And if you give me one moment, I'll stop sharing my slides and I'll hand over to Laura.
That's great. Thanks, Greg. Hi, everybody. This is myself and Andrew's opportunity to introduce you in a little bit more depth into the world of KTP. If you can just go to the next slide, Andrew. So I'm Laura D. I'm a KTP Development Executive at the North of Scotland KTP Centre. I've been at the centre for 5 years. Prior to that, I worked in project management, but I've been involved in industry academic collaborations for about the last 10 years. And prior to that, I have a background in life sciences. Andrew, do you want to just give a brief overview of yourself?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Laura. Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name's Andrew Kinnear, Business Development Officer at the West of Scotland KTP Centre, quite a similar role to Laura. I've been working with KTPs for 5 years now, and prior to KTP, I was in a more industry-faced role working with Mars, and prior to that, I was working in the third sector, securing funding for charities.
That's great. Thanks, Andrew. So my job is to give you an overview of what KTPs are, and as Greg touched on in his introduction, KTPs are unique three-way partnerships. They bring together a business who has a knowledge or faces a challenge that they don't have the skills internally to be able to deliver on, and they partner up with a knowledge base who have the skills and expertise and knowledge that helps them to work with the company to devise a project that helps them to address those strategic challenges. And the aim of those is to drive growth for the UK economy. The third really key part of that partnership is the KTP Associate, which is what Greg did when he first encountered the fantastic world of KTP. And they are brought in, employed by the knowledge-based partner, but working very much within the company to act as the conduit for that knowledge transfer between the partners. They deliver activities on a work plan and work very, very closely with the two other organisations to help to drive that project forward to completion. If you can just click onto that, that's great. So the expected outputs for a KTP are that they will create some strategic innovation and create a solution for the company to work with going forward. They must demonstrate benefits for each partner. So whether that includes publications for the academic team, or it includes other benefits for the company beyond the commercial, but they have to deliver impact as well. So many of our projects, especially in the manufacturing space, are now considering more the environmental impact of the work that those companies do. KTPs are the UK's oldest knowledge transfer programme. They are 48 years old. They started in 1975. And they are funded via a grant from the UK government, which is provided by Innovate UK, and the cash contribution from the business partner. And depending on the size and type of the organisation will depend what the grant rate versus the company contribution is. They're really flexible and are open to any size of business, as long as they have over a minimum number of employees. At the moment, we consider companies with any more than about 4 employees as being eligible for KTP. And the grant rate, as I said, is decided by the size and type of the company. So companies can, private companies or commercial companies can get grant support rate up to 67%, which means that the company's cash contribution will be 33% of the eligible costs. For large companies, that's split 50-50. For charities and third sector organisations, the grant rate is higher at 75%, and the cash contribution from those organisations is therefore 25%. And we've got a new stream of public sector management KTPs that are available, and those are also split 50-50 between the grant and the business contribution. They are flexible and have the potential to cover any research area or industry sector. And we have multiple competition rounds every year, usually around 6, but we're waiting for confirmation for the dates for the next year coming forward. To be eligible for a KTP, a business must be based in the UK with operations taking place within the country, and it must be a strategic and profitable project opportunity for the company. Because they're funded by Innovate UK, the driver is the economic growth for the UK, but obviously we'll consider other different types of impact alongside those as well. And as I touched on in the previous slide, we must be able to demonstrate benefits for all 3 partners. So being able to do an applied research project and getting some cutting edge research into industry for commercial benefit is obviously a really key aspect of what the universities are looking for with their research portfolios. A company needs to have more than 4 full-time employees, and the reason for this is that it helps the project partners to be able to demonstrate that the company has the capacity to supervise the associate, to embed the knowledge and use it going forward, but also that they can demonstrate affordability for that cash contribution to the budget. Minimum project duration is 12 months and the maximum project duration is 36 months. We usually recommend that partners look at projects which are a minimum of 18 months. And that's usually because the onboarding of the associate and the amount of time that they spend doing their personal and professional training and the residential modules that they have access to from Innovate UK just means that having a slightly longer project duration will help them to really drive results and get to a commercial endpoint by the end of the project. And that KTP associate is brought in as a dedicated researcher on a full-time basis as a resource specifically to work on the project. And they should have a relevant background to deliver that project and to transfer that knowledge between the university academic partner and the business partner. We have to demonstrate in our applications 4 key assessment criteria. So each of these are weighted equally during that assessment process. So 1/4 of the marks for the assessment are for impact. It must be quantifiable. So it's usually built around the economic benefits to the company, but also looking at the potential for dissemination. So writing papers, presenting at conferences, contributing to new teaching materials, for example, and also acting as a key career development vehicle for the KTP Associate. For the innovation, although not all of our projects are going to be transformational on a sectoral or industry basis, they must deliver a step change for the business partner and enable them to create that capability to do something new and different, and develop new ways of working or develop new products, for example. And they must be significant and strategic to the company and create new knowledge for the academic team. And whether that's just as an initial exposure into an industry academic partnership, or whether it really is creating new groundbreaking research, will largely depend on the type of project that a partnership is building. The whole thing has to come together and demonstrate cohesiveness. And that's really where myself and Andrew and the centres come in to act as an objective extra pair of eyes to make sure that the things that the business are putting forward in their parts of the application marry really closely with what the academics are outlining in their project work plan, to make sure that the overall deliverables and the goals are matching and really look like the partnership is working together to develop their project plan. And then for challenge, this is a really key one because every single challenge is going to be different depending on what the project looks like. It could be that the project is aiming to deliver some kind of culture change and helping the workforce within a company to do things really differently. It could be that they're developing or implementing new technologies or working practices. It doesn't always have to be about developing a new product. And that should require a high level of academic input throughout. So it could be that the academic team has worked on similar kinds of projects before, but they're looking at applying their knowledge in a completely different sector. That's going to create a challenge for the academics. For the associate, for them to be able to blaze a trail by doing something completely new is going to be challenging for them, and also to act as that link between academia and industry has its own challenges as well. I touched on the grant rates for KTPs depending on the size of the organisation, but the cost obviously for the cash contribution will vary as well, depending on the size and type of your organisations. For charities and third sector organisations with that higher grant rate of 75% of project costs, we would estimate that that would result in a contribution of between £25,000 and £30,000 per year, and that is going to depend on what the total project costs are going to be, which are calculated as we know how long the project is going to be and the teams that are involved and the travel between sites, etc. For SMEs, the grant rate of 67% translates into a contribution of between £30,000 and £35,000 per year. And for large companies where the grant rate is 50%, that's between 50 and 60. And when we work through the process of building the application, those costs will become clearer. We use a full economic costing model, which is used by universities to calculate their costs, and we will work with you throughout that process to make sure that that is fully transparent. I'm going to hand over to Andrew, and he's now going to talk about KTPs in Scotland.
That's great. Thanks, Laura. So where I think KTP is probably slightly different or may differ from some of the other ways you've perhaps engaged with academia in the past is the level of support that is around KTP. And for me, I think it's one of the sort of the main benefits that comes along with the KTP scheme. So as mentioned before, myself and Laura are based at regional KTP centres. Scotland is slightly different from the rest of the UK in that what we would call knowledge bases. So typically universities are basically everyone in Scotland is associated with a separate regional KTP centre. So I'm based at the West of Scotland KTP centre. We support universities in the West of Scotland. East Centre, funnily enough, supports universities in the East, and Laura and the team support universities that are based in the North. So where we sort of fit in the sort of the wider KTP ecosystem, if you would like to call it that, funding comes from Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, which was BASE before the Department for Business, Energy and Industry Strategy, but there was some reorganisation at government level. So Science, Innovation and Technology Department, that money funds down to UK Research and Innovation, which then feeds into Innovate UK, who are the main funders for KTP. And the reason that they are funding that and have been funding that for 48 odd years, with the sort of the half century coming up in a couple of years, is that KTPs do work and have a proven value to not only the businesses that they work with, but also to the wider economy as well. And I love bringing up the sort of the 50 years. Governments and different departments are always looking to try and try something new, switch funding about, and maybe create something different or channel funding elsewhere. But KTP has survived for 50 years, so I do think that is a great demonstration that KTP does work. So if we follow the lines down to the regional KTP centres, as mentioned, each of the KTP centres in Scotland is associated with what we'd call a knowledge base. So as I mentioned, typically a UK university. We can work with any company in the UK, and we have projects spread without the UK, and one of those is in the case studies that we'll touch upon slightly later. As well as the support from the regional KTP centres. We have what are called knowledge transfer advisors. Part of their role has been able to evaluate and assess whether a KTP project is viable or not, and they work very closely with the KTP centres to do that. And once the project is up and running, as part of their role, they will help to monitor the project, make sure that the sort of the governance is in place, and supporting the associate, really mentoring them through that project to make sure that the project has a successful outcome. So if perhaps a company is maybe newer to doing a research and development type project, there's quite a lot of project management support that's offered both by the knowledge transfer advisors as well as the KTP centres to make sure that the projects, once they're up and running, are a success. The knowledge transfer advisors sit slightly differently. They're more based locally to where the company will be based, and where the company are based, typically that's where the associate will be based as well. So as I mentioned before, any knowledge base can work with any company in the UK, and the associate would typically be based at that company. KTPs are big on the sort of transfer of knowledge to within the company, and a real tool of doing that is having the associate based within the company to get a real understanding of what those company requirements are, where the key challenges are, and then working with that that knowledge base to then develop some solution that's come from the sort of the academic research. I'll just click through in the slide. So what we do, and when I say we, that is all the sort of the KTP centres based in the UK is up on the screen. I'll go this in a bit more detail. As I mentioned, we are slightly different in Scotland from the rest of the UK, in that if you work with a university, you have a dedicated KTP centre resource. Whilst there are other universities that do have, I suppose, a KTP office, a lot of other universities we'll also have those KTP specialists will be then working in other areas. So they will have a great knowledge of KTP, but it maybe won't be sort of as in-depth as you would get through the KTP Scotland model. So what we do is support KTPs from cradle to grave, from all the way from the initial conversations that you might be having, or even thoughts that you might be having just now. KTP is quite a big, complicated beast to wrangle when you first come across it. So really a big part of our role is sitting down, being able to chat through what is your project, what are you looking to do, does this fit with the KTP scope? If it does, great. If it doesn't, we'd be able to point you or signal you into other funding schemes or other funding routes. And then if it sits in that grey area, and a big part of our role is being able to say, well, it might not be KTP now, but if it's possible to do X, Y, Z, we think that it could be KTP. And then if that's feasible, we're then able to take the project through to securing funding. So a big part of our role is engaging with companies to make sure that KTPs are suitable. We also have academics coming and speaking to us and asking the exact same questions. And we often have companies coming and speaking to us quite similar to the support that Greg can offer at NMIS. If you have an idea for a project but haven't perhaps identified the right or relevant academics, that's something that we're able to do as well. So between the 3 centres, you've got access to basically every university within Scotland. That's a huge pool of expertise, and we work a lot of the time with academics who are world leading in what it is that they do. Sometimes I think they're a bit of an under-tapped resource. So if you do have a project idea but you're not quite sure who it is you should be speaking to within the universities, we're more than happy to sort of facilitate those conversations going forward. Once we've got to the point where we feel that it is a viable project, we offer quite close support, or I should say very close support in the sort of the project writing phase. So there's a number of steps that we need to go through. So there's a fact-finding form that would go to the KTP advisors. That's effectively an expression of interest with Innovate UK, saying this is the project we'd like to do. Once the advisor is happy with that, we then go to a project scoping meeting, which would involve everyone in the project. And again, that's another project meeting to really make sure that we're all reading off the same page, to make sure that the funders are happy, that everyone else is happy with the project that's going to be moving forward. Once we've had that meeting, it's really about developing the partnership. And part of that is the application writing process. And there is a bit, as with any government funding, there is a bit of work required up front, but hopefully it is all worthwhile, as the application success rate for the Scotland KTP centres is basically 100%. So the national success rate is quite high normally anyway. I think in the most recent rounds it was about the 75% mark. So 3 and 4 is quite good, but if you work with the KTP centres in Scotland, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of expertise. We do a lot of these projects. It is all we do. So there is, basically a 100% success rate when you work with us, and we wouldn't be happy submitting an application if we didn't feel that it was going to be funded. Once projects have been funded, there is a wealth of support offered post-award by the teams at the KTP Centre. If you are a company and you work with the KTP Centre, hopefully you won't see a lot of that. A lot of it's sort of behind the scenes, sort of hiding the wiring. But part of that is project setup, recruiting the correct associate for the role, and that's a joint recruitment process between the knowledge base to make sure that they've got the right sort of research skills or academic understanding, whatever that may look like. But then obviously making sure that they're a good cultural fit for the organisation that they're going to be working with as well. And then once the project's up and running, things like project governance, making sure that all finance documents, are all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, making sure that they're submitted in time. There's ongoing reporting throughout the project that follows quite a sort of strict structure, and we help support with that as well. And then once the project is completed, we help with sort of final reporting, case studies, to make sure that we're keeping the funders happy and satisfying the needs of the funding. To make sure that we can really sort of demonstrate the value of the project. As Laura mentioned, there are approximately 6 deadlines a year. It takes about 8 weeks till we hear an outcome and 9 months to recruit, but I'll go into a bit more detail on the timings here. So if you are looking to potentially build a KTP project, in terms of from that initial idea to, you know, really submitting an application, we would be looking at, I would suggest, about 8 to 12 weeks on average being the key part. Sometimes it does take longer. I have built projects from start to finish in under 8 weeks as well, but typically, you know, from having that initial idea to meeting with, you know, or bringing that project team together, having everyone reading off the same page and everyone happy to submitting, typically takes sort of 8 to 12 weeks. Once we submit, as mentioned, it takes about 8 to 10 weeks before we hear a result, which may sound like a lot of time if you're more commercially focused, but in the term, you know, in the world of grant funding, that is quite quick. And once we've got the funding secured, we've got up to 9 months to recruit the associate. So that means we can go through, you know, sort of 2, potentially 3 recruitment rounds if required, to make sure that we've got, you know, the right person in post delivering the job. Then, as mentioned, once the project is up and running, we help provide sort of ongoing support for the project. Basically trying to make the project as easy for you to run, as easy for the academics, you know, to be involved in, trying to take that burden away so that you can really focus on delivering, you know, the impacts for the company. Typically, you know, some sort of commercial return, but, you know, it could be, you know, feeding into sort of your social or more societal impact type goals, or, you know, if you've got sort of ESG goals as well. So, just reiterating the knowledge bases that we work with, the North of Scotland KTP Centre, as you can see from the slide, work with, you know, the universities sort of based across the north, you know, in the Highlands and Islands as well. If you're looking to work with West of Scotland, we typically work with Strathclyde University Glasgow and Glasgow Cali as well, but we've done projects in the past with the Glasgow School of Art and Royal Conservatoire of Scotland as well. We don't have any active projects with them at the moment, but we are their supporting partner. And then, as you'll see as well, the East of Scotland KTP Centre works with projects sort of, yeah, in the East as well. So we will share these slides at the end. It's been recorded for YouTube, so you can sort of go through it. If you're working with any of those knowledge bases at the moment and you are interested in KTP, feel free to get in touch with your, you know, your local KTP centre. We will be sharing those details at the end. But we are in quite a unique position, and that we do work with, you know, basically every knowledge base, you know, throughout Scotland. So we have got, you know, access to academics throughout Scotland. So if you are looking to do a project, I would think between the sort of the 3 regional centres that we would be able to identify, you know, someone that can deliver the project and that is going to be able to, you know, be an expert, yeah, on that area of expertise. So I'm going to hand back to Laura now. KTPs are maybe a bit hard to conceptualise, so we've got some case studies that should hopefully make that a bit clearer for you. So yeah, back over to you, Laura.
That's great. Thanks, Andrew. So I'm going to cover the case study for the North of Scotland KTP Centre, which was a project between the Turbo Guy and Abertay. So they approached Abertay University in about 2017, and they were looking to develop a project to implement an automotive remanufacturing process, which considered the circular economy. So the Turbo Guy is a supplier of turbos, both new and remanufactured across the UK. And at the time of them bringing the opportunity for the project to us, they were working to supply these turbos to independent repairers, motor factories and buying groups, and they held a stock of OEM turbos and also aftermarket products. And they're a founding member of the Scottish Institute for Remanufacture. And the aim of their project was to improve their processes and systems to the extent that they could have a certified quality management system and achieve ISO 9001 accreditation. They were the first company in their sector to achieve this. as a result of working with their associate on their KTP. They also implemented a full stock control and shipping system with an advanced customer relationship management system integrated into their quality management system. And their associate developed an inventory management analysis tool, which wasn't originally part of the scope of the initial KTP project, but it delivered tangible benefits to the company, both operationally and commercially. And that included things like being able to generate meaningful reports, such as customer buying behavior, which really enabled their operations team and their sales team to work seamlessly together to help to target their customers and to increase their commercial reach. Having those new systems in place provided the company with evidence of high product quality and process controls and allowed them to build trust with their customers as a result of this. They secured contracts with a large number of customers over a wider geographical area than they had been operating in prior to the KTP, which also helped them to reduce the commercial risk of relying on a single large value contract. By implementing all of the operational changes as a result of their KTP, it enabled them to reduce their customer lead times to 48 hours on average, by being able to improve their efficiency, but also it increased their green credentials by reducing the amount of rework and the amount of waste that happened within their remanufacturing facility. A knock-on effect of all of these integrated systems and processes that they were able to implement was improved induction and training. And improving those things helped them to create a progression model for making it easier to recruit, to train and retain staff. And as a result of their KTP, they trained 24 staff in the new operational systems and processes, but also directly were able to recruit 6 new staff off of the back of the increase in the business turnover that they enjoyed as a result of their KTP. For their associate, she came in with a background in EOQ optimization and inventory management and software development. And that combined with the academic expertise in manufacturing, quality management, supply chain management, workflow design, and business process engineering has really created fundamental and transformational change within the business. After the associate finished on the KTP, the company actually supported them by sponsoring them on a 3-year industry studentship, which resulted in the associate being enrolled in a PhD project with the University of Glasgow. So I hope that the case study, although it's not gone into a huge amount of detail about what they did during the project, you can see that there were really clear benefits for all 3 partners in that project. I'm going to hand over now to Andrew, and he's going to discuss the other 2 case studies with you.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So one of the projects that I've worked on myself is with a company, Cokebusters, around doing non-destructive testing or non-destructive evaluation. The company Cokebusters are a company based in Wales. So as I mentioned, we can work with companies throughout the UK. And what Cokebusters do, as you'll see from the picture, is it's called a pig. And what it does is it goes through a pipe. And as it goes through the pipe, it spins and cleans the pipe. So if you imagine, if you say a coal-fired generator, or the pipe, there's going to be dirt or coke that builds up on the inside of the pipe, and that needs to be cleaned. What Cokebusters do, and they're quite unique in this, is that whilst being able to clean the pipe, they're also able to evaluate the integrity of the pipe as well through non-destructive testing methods. And their unique selling point is the diameters that their products can go into are much smaller than competitors. So they're world leading in the sort of the small diameters that they operate in. What they were looking to do is decrease those diameters even further. so that the pigs that they've got are pushed by water down the pipe. So as they get fired down the pipe and they're spinning, there's effectively a small beam that gets shot out and comes back and is able to detect things like cracks or integrity breakdowns in the pipe. So what they were looking to do with the KTP was to be able to miniaturize that even further, so that they can keep their market leading position and being able to work in sort of really narrow diameters, but also basically looking to increase the quality of the information that they were getting back. So as you can see from the project focus, they're looking to embed expertise, mobile acoustic technologies for detecting corrosion, degradation, in pipes that they work in, and as well as being able to go through pipes pushed by liquid, being able to operate in pipes that are non-liquid, mediums, which would help them to access new markets. Such as being able to go into the energy sector, which is quite a hard sort of sector to get into. The KTP has been an absolutely massive success. It was supported in part by the Welsh Government as well. So whilst they are based in Wales, they've got offices, a sales office out in America as well. So the Welsh Government were able to put in some funding for the associate to be able to go out to that office as well to get a better understanding for what the business was like in America, get more of an understanding for what the different markets were like, and then be able to bring that expertise back to the office that's based in Wales, to really be able to then integrate solutions from the academic team, sort of facing the real world problems that are that they're experiencing effectively globally. Their outputs or impacts are quite simple. By making their product better, they're going to be able to sell to more clients. So you can hopefully see that there's quite a clear sort of commercial route there, and that the company are going to be able to make more money. The company were really bought into KTP, so much so that they've actually had a second project funded, which again is looking to sort of improve the quality of the feedback that they're getting from their product. So yeah, a really good case study. Hopefully you can see when we go back to the funding criteria in terms of the challenge. The company had a problem that they couldn't really fix themselves. There's some sort of innovative techniques that have been researched in academia. By then transferring them across, to the company, we're then ticking that impact box as well, and that the company are going to be making money. And then for the academic team, they're developing impact as well by being able to say, we've taken this research, it's not just research, we've taken this, out into the real world, and created, a commercial solution that's going to be, working for the company. And then another case study, this one was developed with the East of Scotland KTP Centre. So Stone Lighting are a specialist manufacturer of architectural lighting equipment. The business designs, manufactures and assembles all of their lighting products from Edinburgh, but they export across the globe. And they're really keen on making sure that their products are designed for the the full circular economy, with all the sort of the considerations that go along with that. So for them, it was really key, being able to understand and apply metrics for sustainability. It's gaining more and more importance within their industry, as I'm sure it is, with many of your industries as well. So yeah, it was really around controlling emissions to, help their improve their environmental impact, as well as being able to comply with, upcoming legislation as well. So the business was, growing, with lots of different types of specialists as they're coming in, from industrial and product designers, marketing, business development, etc., etc. But what they did realise was that they did not have the required expertise within the company to undertake sort of expert analysis on sustainability, as well as carbon life cycle assessment. So with the support of KTP funded by Innovate UK, Stone Lighting were able to connect with a team within Edinburgh Napier University, consisting of data scientists who worked with the company to provide that sort of that missing expert knowledge that they didn't have internally. So that was life cycle assessment, carbon quantification, and then taking them towards net zero, and sustainability within that sort of built environment. So yeah, what the team were effectively looking to do was, identify a harmonised methodology that can be applicable for the whole lighting industry to measure and report, on the environmental impact of their products. So for Stone Lighting, not only did they have the opportunity to learn from the Edinburgh Napier research scientists through the collaboration, obviously accessing their expertise and knowledge of, emerging technologies through the research, but they also had the opportunity to share, the insights of the success of the project with, sector leaders, which is, great for the company, as well as with, wider Edinburgh Napier research scientists, speaking at things like industry conferences, featuring in trade journals, and demonstrating to colleagues in the sector, and obviously to their customers, that Stone Lighting, are leaders of innovation within their field. So you can see a slightly different project there, but again, going back to, what we're looking for in terms of KTP, you can see that there's a clear challenge there for the company, and that there was knowledge that they didn't house internally already. The academic team were able to, bring that innovation to the company, and then in terms of the impact, they were able to introduce something to the wider industry that hasn't been done in their sector already. And by doing that, they're able to, position themselves as sector leaders, market leaders, and really help to, drive the industry forward. So that's the case studies. In terms of getting in touch, there are some contact details up on the page here. As I mentioned before, there is a huge amount of support available. It's quite hard to go into KTP in sort of under an hour. So if you do have any questions, feel free to get in touch with myself, Laura, and Greg directly, or contact the KTP centres. And that is everything from me. So thank you for listening.
Andrew, thanks so much. Laura, thank you as well. Really appreciate the deep dive into KTP, and it's like you said, there's a lot of good work that's gone on over the years, and it's great to get a bit of a snapshot and see some of those case studies in particular. Really interesting. Couple of observations, I guess, just give people time to digest and see if any questions pop up in the chat. I think that impact part of KTP can't be understated. I think you see that in the case studies that you guys presented there, and the benefit to the companies is really clear. But I think that's as you alluded to, Laura, the duration that KTP's been around, it's really clear that the impact that those projects are delivering and have been delivering for nearly 50 years now. As you mentioned, the government's always looking for ways to shave a bit of money or reinvest or reform a programme. And I think, the fact that KTP has been such a long-standing opportunity demonstrates the impact that these projects make. And obviously, again, I think we're really lucky in Scotland that we've got the expertise of the three KTP centres and yourselves to help shape those bids and shape those projects as well. And that value can't be underestimated either. We all are aware of the different funding pots that are out there. They're often quite difficult to get to. And the support that you guys are able to provide in building those projects and helping get companies over the line is really valuable. So long may it continue. And as I said, we're certainly keen on ramping up the work that we can do with NMIS and KTP. And again, I think that's one of the important things to mention, which maybe we didn't touch on, is there's the ability to build projects across different academic departments and draw in different strands of expertise. So about business school working with engineering faculty, for example, and delivering different types of expertise into that project. That's really powerful as well, and just being able to connect those different strands of academia together to work on that project, again, not to be understated.
No, absolutely. I would 100% agree with you. And interestingly, I'm sure Andrew was in the same boat as me, but there were so many different case studies that we could have picked for various different reasons. But actually that element of having different teams of academics working together on a single project is one that we're seeing more and more. One of our most successful projects in recent years actually was in a marine fabrication company, and they had these really great ideas of how they were going to integrate sensors into their equipment and gather data to help them deploy their fleet better and understand the performance and increase the efficiency of how they were going to deploy all of these different bits of kit. But the thing that they really had to do was to win hearts and minds, not only internally within their workforce, but also with their customers as to, well, why are you putting these sensors on? Why are you collecting all this data? And it helped that they worked with the business school to incorporate some change management processes into their KTP, because by the end of it, you know, the results of the project were truly transformational. They piloted it on one piece of kit in one KTP project, and because of the success of that and having embedded all of those change management processes into the company, they've now got a second project where they are cascading all of that new knowledge and all of those new capabilities across the whole fleet. So for them, it has been truly transformational, but for the university partner, it gave the engineering academics a chance to work with the business school for the first time. So that's helped to develop new you know, internal relationships between academics too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think, you know, that's exactly what we see in NMIS. You know, we've got that slightly different expertise from you know, from a lot of the academic institutions. You know, we're here to fulfill a slightly different role, and you know, that's where we feel that we can add a bit of value by being able to partner in on some of those projects. And you know, we've got state-of-the-art facility, state-of-the-art equipment, and you know, the ability to just be in there as part of that wider team is really valuable. And again, I think, you know, something you touched on there is, you know, that repeat project as well. It's something that we tend to see is once people have had a taste for KTP and have been through the process, it often leads to a follow-on project or something else as well. It tends to be a bit of a long-term relationship that gets built with the KTP community. So yeah, really powerful program, and you know, a great way to build those links with the academic community as well, and you know, obviously lots of other opportunities to work together there out with KTP too. So no, look, thanks again, guys, for your input today. It looks as if you're going to get off relatively lightly. I don't see any questions popping into the chat, so so hopefully that's just a representation that you covered everything well in your presentations. Obviously, if we do get anybody does have any questions, I'll pop my email into the chat there, so feel free to email me and I can connect you guys with Andrew and Laura accordingly. Oh, there we go. Murdo, thank you. Nice wee question popping in there just because I was about to round off. So is there a process flow or a script which can be followed as a guide to the KTP process, you know, from making initial contact with the KTP centre through to the actual application?
I'm happy to come in on this, Laura, if you don't mind. Yeah, so from our side, yes, there is quite a clear process that I suppose you need to jump through certain you know, gates from, you know, that initial idea to, you know, applying for funding. So I would really encourage you in the first instance to come and speak to us. You can't submit a KTP application without speaking to us anyway, so it's good to speak to us in the first instance. One of the first steps, once you've spoken to us, and the first sort of formal step is involving a KTP advisor. So when we meet and we've identified that project, we produce a short report which goes to the KTP advisor to effectively get their buy-in for the project. Once we've done that, the sort of the next step in the process is having a formal meeting with the advisor, where they are, you know, making sure that the project's eligible. But to be honest with you, at that point, given the expertise that the KTP centres have got, you know, it should be an eligible project. And at that point, it's more about going into the real sort of nitty-gritty of what the project's looking to deliver, to really ensure that it's, you know, that it's going to get funded. And once we've done that step, we then go to the application process. Hopefully we get the project funded, and then after that, it's, you know, it's sort of your typical recruitment process. And once we've got someone in post, the project, you know, is funded. So those are the key sort of gates. But as we mentioned, you know, myself, Laura, and the team at the East of Scotland KTP Centre are really there to, you know, really hold your hand throughout that whole process and make it as easy as possible for you. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I can certainly connect you, Murdo, with Andrew and Laura there to, you know, who'll be happy to share their process map out for you, to give you an idea of those sort of timescales. So yeah, I can certainly make that connection for you. Look, no more questions coming in. So I think I will hand back over to Debbie, and we will look to wrap up today's session. Thanks again for everybody for joining us. I hope you found it really interesting, and I look forward to hearing your KTP ideas over the coming months.
Thanks very